you're seeing the slide and not my email or something?
Yep, we're seeing the slide. Thank you. Okay.
Let me start about 10:35, Carrie.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right, I've got 10:35. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. And welcome to the delayed September meeting for the Kansas City Coalition for Digital